Hey guys, and welcome back to the Mise-En-Sesh podcast. I've totally forgotten what episode this is. I want to say 8, but I've lost track of how many we've done now. We've done so many of them. For the keen-eyed and eagle-eyed viewers, you may notice that I have a new light in the background. It's very nice. It changes colour, and that's
this
about
episode
it,
is
really.
sponsored by RGB lights,
RGB.
brought to you by China.
Anyway, so I was going to say big event this week. It's not a huge event, but the One Division finale, and we've watched the whole show now. So should we say we'll talk about it for a few minutes, and if you haven't seen it, then skip ahead to, I don't know, like 5-10 minutes. But yeah, so what were your opinions on the finale?
I enjoyed it for what it was, but I was left a bit. I'm supposing intentionally confused. Not confused. I had questions that needed answers. Like,
did you watch both post-credit scenes?
Wait.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
There's the one in the theatre and one in the log cabin.
I did watch. Yeah. So that was the thing. So there was two major things that that left me wondering, like, what's going on. I'm assuming there's a season 2 on the way. Is there not?
I don't think there is, though, because it's meant to lead directly into Doctor Strange 2. But because I was having this chat with my mate, I was like, well, what happens when they get up to present day? Like, they're going to run out of eras? And he was like, no, I think it's just literally meant to be one season. I think that's how they're doing it.
When I first started watching it, I figured it would be a one season thing. But then the way that it started to end, I was like, well, surely there's going to be a second season or something. But if they're going to carry it on into the main films, then fine by me. But there was the two things that stood out to me was the Vision when when fake Vision, imaginary Vision convinces the re-engineered Vision that he is Vision, and he goes, I am Vision, and flies off through the roof of the wherever they are, and then you just don't see him again.
Yeah.
Unless I missed something, he just goes off.
No. So you've got Vision and White Vision, and Vision uses the Theseus paradox, which I'd heard about before, and it always interested me. Where if you don't know what it is, essentially imagine you've got a boat, where it is built by a man called Theseus, and over the years, obviously this boat it needs like bits get replaced. There's rot and stuff, so plank by plank the boat gets replaced, but all the original planks are kept off to the side, and they get renewed, they get replenished. So the boat, which has had every part replaced, suddenly none of the original pieces are there. So is that the ship, or is the ship which is then formed out of all the original pieces, is that the original ship? And it's the thing of there are two which exist in the same space and time.
Yeah.
So neither of them can be the real ship, but neither of them are not the real ship. That's a really haphazard way of doing it.
We've just stumbled out of the Mise-En-Sesh into an episode of Vsauce.
I love paradoxes, but I literally turned to my girlfriend and went, I don't see any other way how they could have done that. Like, a Vision v Vision thing was always going to end with one of them using logic to outsmart the other. Like, it was never going to be just a punch them up and one of them just breaks the other one. Like, it was always going to be something where they just talk and they use logic. But yeah, so I think the way I see it is you see White Vision fly off at the end, but you see Vision, he just essentially ceases to exist as the hex closes in. But I get the impression White Vision is either going to pop back up in Doctor Strange 2, or I believe he's going to pop back up later down the line when we've started to forget about him. He'll just pop back up again, and he's like, oh, look, I've discovered all this stuff. Lego.
Well, that's the thing, though. Is, like, I didn't get, like, surely... Like, it just wasn't the reaction I was expecting, because obviously he gets all his memories unlocked and he realizes who he is and basically becomes Vision again, for all intents and purposes. So obviously he knows that Wanda's down there in trouble, or up there, wherever she is at that point in time. She's out there in trouble. So you'd think that, the instinctive reaction to Vision, who's just sort of woken up again, the real Vision, is that he'd, like, stick around Wanda, but, like... I'm sure it's going somewhere.
See, in the comics, White Vision is a character, and it's, if I remember correctly, essentially he's got all of the physical attributes, got all the abilities, and he's got all the memories of Vision, but he has
Oh,
none of the
okay, right.
emotional connection. And I think he literally turns to his two kids and they go, "Dad, why are you?" I think it's literally like they say, "Why are you white now?" And he goes, "I have the physical appearance of your father. I have the memories of your father, but I am not your father. I'm
Okay,
a
right.
different entity entirely." Because he
So,
has
so it
no
unlocks the
emotional
memories, but it doesn't
connection
necessarily
whatsoever.
make him Vision again. It's just okay.
Yeah, he's essentially just a synth. Why do they call it? It's not a synthezoid. I can't remember what it is. Whatever it is. He's
Yeah.
essentially a robot who's got all these memories, but he doesn't have the
Okay.
connection to Wanda. So that'll be
Okay.
something to
Fair enough.
explore, I'm guessing. Um,
And
but
the other
yeah,
thing that I was wondering about
because
was
I
when Wanda was in the hut and there was Wanda walking around, but then there was like the witch version of Wanda, and I was like, well, why is there two of them?
so I obviously you see Wanda
Yeah.
fly off at the end. Um, like I love the outfit, by the way. I think that's an amazing adaptation of the outfit. But you see a fly off at the end, and I was like, what the hell's that? Like that's not an ending. I was left really sort of like, well, what the hell happens now? Then you get the post-credit scene where Monica is talking to the scroll, and I think that's setting up for Secret Invasion. Because she says a friend of your mother's wants to talk to you, and then points up to what I'm guessing is space, where Nick Fury is on the ship you see at the
Yeah.
end of Far From Home. So that I'm guessing Monica is going to be a big part of Secret Invasion. But then the one with Wanda in the log cabin, you see her making the tea or whatever it is, and then it's her astral form is the one that's reading the Darkhold, and you see Doctor
Oh,
Strange
okay.
do this in Doctor Strange movie when he's physically asleep, his astral
Oh,
form is
right.
still
Okay.
reading and learning. Um, it's one of those things like powerful
Yeah, I
wizards can
figured
do
that
it.
was the case, but I just sort of
And
wasn't
apparently,
sure. I don't know the context of.
yeah, I've thought about this quite a lot, believe it or not. Um, and yeah, my girlfriend literally turned to me earlier and went, "Do you want to watch the entirety of WandaVision back to back to back?" I was like, "Yes, that sounds amazing to me." So that's our plan for
Nice.
tomorrow. Um, but yeah, like I absolutely love the show. The one thing I do really dislike, well, there's a couple of things. The one major thing is the fact that they brought Quicksilver in, and then he literally got reduced to a boner joke. I'm like, you are kidding me. Because
Yeah.
he's Ralph Boner or something. I'm like, why? But then it was the Paul Bettany was like, oh, there's a cameo which is on the level of Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian. Spoilers if you haven't seen Mandalorian. Um, it's a huge cameo. And then he revealed literally, I think it was the Thursday before the finale. He was like, yeah, no, I was on about me. uh, as in me playing two characters. So yeah, sorry about that because everyone was expecting Mephisto, Reed Richards, like Grim Reaper or something, and it's yeah. I really wanted to see John Krasinski donning a Fantastic Four outfit, but no, I have to wait for that. But yeah, anyway, I think
That's the
we
One
should uh,
Vision
we should move
segment
on from this because otherwise
done.
that's the WandaVision segment. Spoiler free from now on for WandaVision. But yeah. So I've got a few topics here. One division's actually a good point for this. Is how do you like to enjoy TV shows? Do you binge them or do you watch them
Ooh,
weekly?
I think I've got to say binge because it's been so long since I've actually watched a TV show like week by week. Because like I used to do it when I was living back at home when I was younger, and it was before Netflix was really a huge thing. You know, it's a long time ago. Um, but
Hmm.
like sort of the actually I God it must be even longer since I started since I watched shows on TV like week by week or anything week by week because I went through a big phase of sort of not really watching that much in terms of film or TV. I used to watch more films than TV to be honest. But like when I went to uni, for example, like it was the whole like you don't have a TV license in your accommodation. Ooh, don't watch TV shows and stuff like that. And then I was just too busy doing uni stuff to like sit and watch shows every week. So like I just sort of missed everything, but then caught up all in one big go. So I didn't really
Yeah.
set aside time to watch like shows as they came out. I've sort of just went about my business, and then one day I realised that it's all come out, so I'd be like, oh, okay, and I just binge through the whole thing. But I don't do that intentionally. But
Yeah.
that is just, the shows that I've been interested in have all been ones that have been running for long enough for me to binge them. But like WandaVision is the first show in, God, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years where I've watched it like, week by week as it's come out. Because usually usually I'm just too
Yeah.
busy doing other things to put like an hour aside per week. So I just set a day aside at the end of the month and watch a bunch of episodes together.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I think I'm the same. Like I especially since lockdown, all I've done
Mm.
is just binge shows. Like I binged the entirety of Supernatural in the space of like 2 months, and that's 15 years worth of content within 2 months. Um, because I would say WandaVision is the first show in a while where I've watched it week by week, and that was excruciating. I hated that. But I watch all the CW superhero shows, like the Arrowverse shows or whatever it's called now. Um, I watch all those shows week by week, and that I don't know. I feel like at this point I only watch them just because I've committed so much time to them already. Like I just watched the season 7 premiere of The Flash, and it's like Arrow was good. It started to dwindle a bit in the middle, and then the final couple of seasons really picked up. The Flash, it's sort of getting to that point now where I'm like, I'm literally just watching this because I like the
Mm.
Flash as a character, like as in the comic book Flash. The show, I'm like, I don't really see where you're going to go with this anymore. I'm very sort of torn of like, do I even want to bother committing time to this anymore? Just because I don't enjoy it as much as I used to, but that could just be because I would have been about 16 when the show started airing. I say 16, that's generous, like 18, something when the show started airing. Um, so obviously, yeah, that's 6, 7 years of my life I've committed to it. But it is getting to the point now. I'm like, I don't want to just wait week in, week out for another disappointing episode. So
This
yeah,
thing's like,
there you go.
I think I would rather watch week by week. I think that is the better way to enjoy a series. It's so difficult to do that now because if you miss a couple of weeks, then you've already got a few episodes where you can binge them together. Like if like the part of the fun like back when I was a kid was like you'd watch an episode and then you'd spend the week talking about it with your friends and you'd speculate, oh, what's going to happen?
Mm,
What's going to happen with this character, or like where's it going to go, that kind of thing. And if it was something that had like a bit of more background to it, that had if it was a show based on like a larger, Game of Thrones is a good example. I haven't watched Game of Thrones, partly because I'm allergic to hype. Whenever a show is stupidly hyped up, I'm just like, nope. Yeah,
no,
like
I'm exactly the same. I've seen the odd bit of it,
yeah,
but
like
I've
I hate
never watched
watching.
the whole
I
thing.
watched the first couple episodes of the first season, and it's everyone always says, "Oh, you need to get to the second half of the first season," but I was like, "Yeah, but I've got to get through the first half of the first season," and I don't like that.
What is it? My mates have been recommending to me for a long time. It's Always Sunny
Yeah,
in
people talk about it
Philadelphia,
all the time.
and the first season of that is so painful to watch. I've literally made it through about 3 episodes. I'm like, I don't want to watch this anymore. It's
Mm.
not funny. Like it's just cringy. And they keep saying, no, 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 honestly, the first season is crap. But you need to watch it to then like you could skip the first season, but you might as well just watch it. I'm like, yeah, but if I'm not enjoying the first
Yeah.
season, why would I then want to commit time to watch the show? Like, and to be fair, I've seen
Well,
clips
it's
from it.
it's
It
like
does
it's like
look
The
very
Office.
funny,
Like I
but
like if someone asked me how I feel about The Office, I'd be like, I love The Office, but I've never actually watched it all the way. Like this,
mm,
I'm talking about the American Office, but the UK Office has the same thing. It's like when like I've seen so many
yeah,
like compilations, like like on Facebook, you're scrolling through and it's like a 16-minute thing of like Jim's best moments or like Office funny scenes, because it's like cringe humor.
mm,
It's like it's sprinkled throughout a lot of the seasons. It's not like it's you turn on the
yeah,
Office and it's like funny from start to finish. It's not. That's not the kind of show it is. It's like it's a lot of sort of mundane stuff and then some cringe humor mixed in. And like I find a lot of the humor in The Office really funny, but the vast majority of the regular runtime that isn't the funny bits is boring to me. But I do enjoy The Office. I do
Yeah.
like The Office, but it's just there's a lot of stuff that I'm just like not willing to sit through. But I do think that's a sort of a side effect of having seen like the montages and stuff on YouTube or Facebook. Because I've seen all the funny bits,
Mm.
so I'm just waiting for them to happen rather than just watching the show for what it is. But
Yeah, because I've watched all of the American Office. I've not seen all of the UK one, which I think is like blasphemy or something in this country. Um, but I've seen all of the American one, and it's because my mate just kept going on about it. I was like, fine, I'll watch it. And it got into that thing because I could just binge it all because it was all on Amazon at the time. I was like, yeah, screw it, I'll watch it all. And then I did enjoy it. And there were a couple of episodes where I was like, I really like, what even is this? Um, and for like the Scott's Tots episode, if you've seen it, then you'll understand how cringy it is to watch. Like it's so uncomfortable to watch it because the character feels so uncomfortable. But it's one of those things where, like, if you stick with it, later down the line, when they make references to all these things which have happened in like season two, you can piece it together. But I feel like a lot of that was due to the fact, like the reason why I could make that connection is because I didn't have to wait like 7 years to make that
yeah,
connection. I literally watched season two about 2 weeks ago. Like I can do that because it's still quite fresh in my mind. Um, yeah, like definitely Game of Thrones. I didn't watch. Like I watched the odd episode of it. I think I made it through most. I think I made it through season one. Um, I think when I was watching it, it's when like season three or four was airing.
yeah,
So this was
probably
a
around the same
while
time
ago.
as me.
Um, Yeah, like I was watching it then, and I was like, yeah, it's all right. It's just a basic hack and slash kind of thing. Like there's the odd sword fight, and then there's a bit of romance, and then there's a bit more sword fighting. I was just like, the story's
Yeah,
okay, but
it's like for me
eh.
when there's
Um,
like the two things that I've heard about Game of Thrones is it's either people hyping it up just completely over the top, being like it's the best thing ever. If you haven't watched it, then you're scum. Watch it now. I'm gonna watch you watch it. And then there's people who complain how the last like 2 or 3 seasons were absolutely terrible and they were like trash and they completely ruined the show. And it's like, well,
yeah.
which one? Is it trash or is it the best thing ever? Make your mind up. And it's when things are so like
We'll
in
see.
your face with extreme opinions. I'm just like, I just tune out. I'm like, I'm not going to bother getting involved with this.
What I found is those are the same kind of people who, when you point out the fact, it's like it's a multi-million-dollar show. Like, how much are they spending on every single episode? And they fucked up that badly to the point there was a Starbucks coffee cup and a
Yeah, I
water
remember seeing that
bottle
as a meme.
in the shots, and it's like, how did you mess that up on a scale that badly with
There
that
was some
much
script
attention?
supervisor on there that
How
got
did
in
you
big
screw that
trouble.
up?
I imagine probably some intern.
But if it's like the fact script supervisor messed up, the editor messed up, the director messed up, the screenings where they tested it in
Yeah,
front of people messed up. Like, how did none of that? It's the same with the Mandalorian. There was a whole thing about you could see the guy's, you could see half of him. You could see like his leg and his part of his torso or something in shot at the end of a corridor. And now they've gone back in and digitally removed him. It's like, how does that
yeah,
get through? Because if that was us, we'd get so much crap for like having that in one of our films or
yeah. If we
something.
if we had that in our
But
uni projects,
then
whoa,
it's
fail.
that would
Yeah,
have been it.
fail.
You'd have been
Go
fail.
back.
But yeah, it's like on a multi-million-dollar project, you get a couple of laughs, someone probably gets a slap on the wrist, and that's it. It's fine.
Like I can see how it can happen
I mean, to
because
be fair, what could you really do?
I can see how it could happen because obviously it's a much smaller set of eyes that are seeing it. Like you've got all these people who are supposed to. I mean, granted, yeah, it's supposed to be like keen-eyed to look for these kind of mistakes, but it's like once you release it to the public, you've got millions of people watching it. That's millions of people who could potentially pick it up. So like, but again, it shouldn't happen. Like,
But it's like with the water bottle, that one I can understand because it was behind a chair leg. Like you can
yeah,
see part of it. But it's with the coffee cup, it's in the middle of the frame. It's like it's bang, it's on the table. You can see it. Yeah. I don't know. So, what was it over the original? It's like
yeah,
binging or watching. Like, I feel like with The Office, if I hadn't been able to binge that, I would have given up. And what's that American football show? Blue Mountain State. So I watched all that, and essentially the same thing. I watched it over the course of a couple of weeks, and I feel like if I hadn't been able to binge
Oh
that,
yeah,
I would have given up on it. Um, and it is one of those things where that's the point I'm at now with like The Flash. It's like I've been watching it for so long, and I want it to get good again, and I'm hoping that it gets good in this season. But already after one episode, I'm like, you're already starting to lose me here, guys. Like I like it, and I sort of see where they're going with the story, but it's like you've done the same plot so many times, where someone gets close to the main character, whoa, they actually turn out to be the big bad, and it's anyway. Moving on. What is your opinion? Because I don't know if you're aware of this, but there is a re-release of Justice League coming out in, I think it's like 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks, and it's the Zack Snyder cut of Justice
okay,
League, essentially the original director's cut. And I think the original film was like 2 hours. This
cool.
is a 4 hour film of loads of stuff which was just cut or removed from the original theatrical release. And it's because Zack Snyder was see, I don't want to say for definite, but from what I gather, he was removed from the project because it was around the time where his daughter unfortunately died. So obviously he was going through quite a lot then. But then from things I've seen, it's like he wanted to take the story one way, whereas Warner Brothers were like, no, we want it to go this way. Because they obviously wanted to open up more plot holes and stuff, or like more story arcs, which they could then
Yeah.
address in later films. But essentially, he's now releasing his own cut of it, which has gone over the top of Warner Brothers. Like they've had nothing to do with it. It's
All right,
AT&T,
okay.
who I believe own Warner Brothers, who have greenlit this. But my question is, what is your opinion on directors being removed from their own project? Because there's the Zack Snyder off Justice League I'm aware of, and then also Edgar Wright off Ant-Man, because he apparently started writing the script for that film in like 2006, and then it was his baby essentially. I can't remember when the original one was released, but then it was taken away from him for creative differences again. And it's yeah, what is your opinion on studios removing
I
directors?
think it's hot trash. I don't think it should be done. But I mean, it's one of those things where when you sign a director to make a film, you're entrusting that director to execute. To use their creative vision. I hate using that expression because it sounds so pretentious, but their creative vision on whatever story it is. And
Yeah,
if you're going to cut a director because basically the director is the guy or the girl or the woman, who you bring in to trust with the creative aspect of making the film, right? That's what a director's job is. Essentially, is to bring the film to life. They have hands all over the film, in writing, in the way that it looks, the way
yeah,
costumes look, the way that the music sounds, the way what locations are used. The director has hands on everything, and again, there's exceptions to the rule. Like if the director's just going to go crazy and just go off what was originally proposed by him or her, then yeah, I can get it.
hmm
If I was if I was like some executive who hired a director to shoot, a rom com, and then they halfway through production, it's starting to look more like a thriller. I'd be like, well, this isn't what we hired you for. Get gone. But if you bring on a
mm,
director to make a certain kind of film, and they make that certain kind of film, but it's just a bit different to what you like, what you wanted as a manager or executive, whatever, then I think it's like, why even bother hiring the director in the first place if you're not going to trust their creative vision on that? And this particularly
yeah,
annoys me because the Hobbit trilogy had this issue. I forget who was supposed to direct. I think it was Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct The Hobbit. Yeah. So, God, I can't even pronounce. Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct the whole Hobbit trilogy, and he was removed from that. I can't say exactly why. I think it's a little bit hazy, the exact reason why. But Peter Jackson had to step in and direct that, even though he didn't want to. He was supposed to serve as like a producer on the whole trilogy. But Del Toro was sort of nudged out the door because they didn't like what he was doing with it, something like that, something to do with a script difference. I can't remember what it was. Besides the point. And Peter Jackson was sort of shoehorned in to finish the project because the people who were financing the whole project, they were like, Del Toro was going to have his own take on Middle Earth, and they were like, actually no, we don't want that. Just get rid of him. And they just shoehorned Peter Jackson into directing a film that he didn't write. He didn't do any planning. He was just sort of working with what was already left over.
Yeah.
And like, if you think about like the Lord of the Rings fandom, it's so huge, and there was such a huge amount of hype over the Hobbit trilogy because Lord of the Rings the film trilogy was so massive, and there's such a big following over the books and everything. And the Hobbit trilogy, I don't know what your opinion is on it, but it's in comparison to Lord of the Rings, it's garbage. Like, it's hot garbage. And
yeah, I've definitely
it's like,
got my issues
as an
with the
adaptation,
trilogy.
as a faithful adaptation of the books, it's trash as well. And as an entry into the Middle Earth sort of film universe, it just doesn't fit. And I think by the studio meddling and replacing a director, you're basically condemning a film to just be a mess, essentially, because there's at any point, obviously I'm sure like and everyone else knows, like, films aren't made in a straight line. The ending might be shot here at the start of production, and there's like bits that are in the middle that are shot at the end, and then there's bits at the start that are shot in the middle. Like, it's
Nothing. It's never
so
ever
it's
shot.
let's say you've got 12 months of filming, and you replace the director after like 4 months. In that first 4 months, you could have shot so many key scenes that you just don't have the budget to reshoot. So then you sort of have this awkward, like, you have to work around what's already there, and you got to sort of shoehorn this film back together with a different director's vision, and it just tanks the film. I've never seen a film where they've changed hands in the director's seat and it's been better because of it. I've not seen that happen. I'm sure it has happened, but I've never seen it happen. And I think that when the studio gets involved and gets rid of a director for what isn't a just reason, I'd describe a just reason as if the director went in a completely different direction as to what they advertised. It negates the point of hiring the director in the first place. The director's job is to oversee it. If you don't trust them, don't hire them in the first place. Simple as that.
Yeah, either let them commit to their vision or don't.
If you have creative differences, just committing to one path will almost always make a better end result than sort of bouncing between different things. Like, if you want to go one way, you want to go that way.
Yes.
You can't go both. You have to do one or the other. And by firing a director, you sort of force the film to do like a handbrake turn, and it never ends well. Rant over.
Is The Hobbit, like, are the Lord of the Rings books or films even based off of The Hobbit?
The way it works is The Hobbit was a children's book that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote just because he wanted to write it. And the original purpose of the ring, the ring that is the Lord of the Rings, that first appears in The Hobbit when Bilbo finds it in the cave. It only existed at that point because Tolkien needed a way for Bilbo to escape the cave. The idea for Lord of the Rings and Sauron and the Rings of Power and stuff, that all came after he had written The Hobbit. The Hobbit was a short children's book that he just wrote, and he liked the world, and he sort of expanded on that, and that obviously led to the Lord of the Rings books, which are up there, provided by you.
There you go. Lovingly. Yeah, because my issue with it is, if I'm remembering correctly, at the start of the Hobbit film, you see Frodo and old Bilbo. If I'm remembering that
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah, so at the very start of the Hobbit
Yeah.
film, the first Hobbit film, it's that sequence happens. That's at the start of the first Lord of the Rings film, and then it sort of flashes back to when Bilbo's young.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
set during the events of the first film, but that was filmed specifically
yeah,
for
yeah.
The Hobbit, if I'm not wrong. My issue with that is, I'm looking at it, with Star Wars, the prequels, they don't refer to the original trilogy whatsoever, because obviously that takes place
Hmm.
years in advance from when this is set. My issue with The Hobbit is they've shown you characters who, if you've seen the original Lord of the Rings films, you know who they are, and it's fine. But if your entry into the universe, if you're trying to watch it chronologically, you have no fucking clue who these characters are, and it makes no sense to add it right at the start of the film because Frodo you're not going to meet for another three
Yeah,
films. It's like why did they feel the need to add that? Because
it's
it's like
fan
we're already
service.
here, we're already watching the film. We don't need to know that Frodo's a thing because he's
Yeah,
already
well,
in the
that's
films.
that's one
Like,
of the biggest issues with the
it makes
Hobbit is
no
that it's sort
sense.
of it's 30%, like it's 30% the Hobbit, and then like 20% fan service, and then uh,
50% mishmash of
yeah,
whatever a director wanted.
Legolas, he wasn't in the books. Um, there's a long list of characters that appear in the films that weren't in the books. Like basically, the Hobbit films just sort of butchered the timeline and the lore of Middle Earth.
Mm.
Like the whole like side quest of Gandalf going off and discovering Sauron at the fortress in Mirkwood, Dol Guldur. That doesn't take place anywhere close to the time that the Hobbit book takes place. That's completely
Yeah.
separate, but they just shoehorned all these things together. Same with the there's like another, I think it might be in the extended edition, but there's a reference to like the Nazgul who've gone to, and the Radagast and Gandalf go to the tombs of the Nine. I'm pretty sure they don't even exist. The
Hmm.
tombs of the Nine don't even exist in the world. They just were invented for the purposes of the film. Like the Lord of the Rings trilogy was such a faithful adaptation. It wasn't perfect, but it was a really faithful and well executed and thoughtful adaptation of the books. Whereas the Hobbit trilogy was just sort of, it didn't really care. It was just like, oh yeah, Bilbo's doing this, and here's a bunch of
Yeah.
things you recognise from Lord of the Rings that we can put in the trailers, and all the original fans can come back and be like, oh, Legolas.
Right. Before I forget quickly, did you want to do this writing thing? Or did you just want to
Oh, we
leave
can do
that for
that.
this week?
Yeah.
Yeah? Right. Because I was thinking if we pull that up and we start doing that now, we can keep chatting. But I just want to make sure we do this before we totally forget it's the end of the episode. All right. Do you want to pull up your
Okay.
magic name generator and I'll work out what genre
Right,
I'm
yeah.
going to do.
Okay, so for those who watched last week, you won't need to know what we're doing here. But in case there's any of you that didn't watch last week, we've started playing a game where once a week we'll go on a random movie name generator website, and we generate a random movie title for each of us. In this case, it's just me and George, but last week we had me, George, and Matt, and we have from whenever we do the draw to the end of the episode to think of a log line and a story outline, which we then share at the end of the episode. But this week it's going to be a little bit different because George has decided that we're going to stick to a genre that you're going to choose.
Which is going to be
Mystery. Okay.
mystery.
So
Mystery.
I've got the coolgenerator.com / movie title generator. Yeah.
Oh
Very high
boy.
tech machinery. Right.
Right, go on
I'm going to
then. Give
generate
me
a
my
random
title.
Right, so the genre is mystery, yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Oh boy.
your title is Woman of Man's Legacy. Woman of Man's Legacy.
Okay.
The mystery. And I'll do
Okay.
it again. And mine is, oh God, Human of Time. Human of Time.
Sounds fine.
So you say that, but like last week, I heard the title, and within like a couple of seconds, I had sort of a vague idea, and I was like, okay, right, I can do this. But then Human of Time. Mystery. Okay, I suppose I can work with that. Right, so... Right, well, do you want to take a minute to think about it and type it up and then continue talking? I can just pause the recording for the people, or do you want to just do it whilst we talk?
Okay. Whilst we talk, I feel like it'll be quite fun to see just the cogs turning. So I feel like I'll be mid-sentence and I'll just go, like, literally mid-sentence. I feel like that's going to happen once or twice. But, yes.
Right, so that's our... So to reiterate, my title is Human of Time, and your title is Woman of Man's Legacy, and the genre is Mystery.
Mystery.
Oh boy. Right, so what's next on the list of things to talk about whilst we try and think of these ideas?
Okay, this is one. Do you ever get emotional to the point of even crying at films or TV shows? I feel like we might have touched on this briefly before.
We might have done. Not really.
See, because up until recently, neither did I. I watched something heavily emotional. Like, I watched Marley and Me and didn't bat an eyelid. That's how like heartless I was. But recently, it's got to the point now where I'm like, what is happening? Why am I like welling up? Why am I sort of like getting choked up over this? Because I'm watching a show at the minute, which is 911, and it follows firefighters, police officers, like first responders essentially, and then the 911 operators and sort of the relationship between all of them. And I've watched 2 seasons of it, and it's literally like every other episode. I'm just here like, why am I getting upset about them? What is happening? It's like, obviously if someone gets killed or whatever, I'm like, fine. But it's just someone doing a really nice gesture. I'm like, what is happening? And I'm going to put it down to, it's just very well written. But I also might think I've just become very emotional over lockdown. Because the finale of Supernatural, oh boy, that was fun. Safe to say, I was glad I was sitting on my own for that one. But yeah.
I mean, like I definitely get more emotional now than I used to when I was younger, but I think that just comes with growing up and going through more life experiences that you can sort of, like, I think a good show often sort of strikes chords that sort of resonate with real life experiences that people might have had. And obviously, as you get older, you've got more experiences that you can sort of relate to. Like, for example, like when I was 12, no one in my life had ever died. My granddad was the first person who had died in my life, and I was 14 when that happened. So up until that point, like I couldn't really sort of connect with the idea of someone dying in a film or TV show. It was sort of very like just, that's something that happens in films and in TV shows. Whereas like now I'm 24, so 10 years later, I've got 10 years more life experience and things that I can sort of find parallels with that, like I can now sort of understand the emotions of a character in a certain situation more than I could when I was younger, when I didn't really give it that much thought. Like the last time I actually cried at a scene, it was actually Stranger Things. Season 3, yeah.
Oh, really?
Spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched it. Skip ahead 2 minutes, but you've seen it, haven't you?
I haven't seen past season 2.
See, I can't tell you.
Season 3, but go ahead.
Okay.
I'm not going to watch it. That's another one where it
Okay.
got so
Yeah, fair
overly
enough.
hyped. I'm like, I don't really care
So
about
at the end of season 3, Hopper, the cop guy, he
it.
he
Yeah.
dies, but also might have not died. We'll have to wait till season 4. But
Ooh.
basically, him and 11, they were really close at the start of the season, and then they have a big fallout and they get separated. And again, it's been a long time since I watched it, over a year since I watched it. And the ending of the last episode of season 3 is basically, it's a monologue, but it's a message that Hopper records, hoping that 11 hears it, when he's talking about stuff. He's like a big speech about like love and friendship and regrets and stuff like that. When he knows when he thinks he's going to die. So I remember watching that, and that monologue, which was really well delivered, combined with the visuals that were on the screen at the time, made me sort of, I didn't go, ooh, I just had a little bit of a thing going down. But at the time,
Oh yeah, I've never had it where I just sit there and
yeah,
bawl my eyes out, but it's like I've had it where I can just sort of feel a tear trickling down. Like that's when I'm sort of like, right, this is I'm broken now. Like, don't talk to me for an hour.
recording is unpaused. Okay, right, so we're back. After the brief intermission, we'll share our riveting story ideas with you at the end of the episode in about 10-15 minutes time. But we've got some other things to talk about before then.
So yeah, I've got a little talking point, which is do you believe, or in your opinion, is advertising more important than the film itself?
Uh, it, mm, that's a tricky one. That's really tricky. Because, well, I'll present both sides, because you could make the best film ever, but if you don't advertise it, no one's gonna, hardly anyone's gonna go and see it in the first place. So, if a tree falls in the
Hmm.
woods, if a great movie comes out and no one sees it, what's the point? But at the same time, is you could make a garbage
Yeah.
film, but then have a really great advertising campaign and rake in lots of money, but then actually the film isn't that good, and it's
And then no one
yeah.
wants
So
to see
it's
any
like,
more of your work.
if you make a good film but don't advertise it well, you have that potential to sort of, the film will sort of go under the radar and it'll become like the original Blade Runner is a good example. That wasn't popular when it first came out, but now it's like a cult classic.
Mm. Yeah.
But then if you make a crap film but advertise it brilliantly, you don't have you have like a spike and then that's sort of it. So it's like one of those things. It's like
Yeah.
if you prioritize advertising a film over making a good film in the first place, then it's like a cash grab there and now. Whereas if you just make a great film and if the advertising doesn't do it isn't as good as it could be, then that's like a long term investment, because over time you will
Yeah.
start people will discover the film and appreciate it. So I forget the question. Was it advertising important or?
Like, would you
Mm.
argue that advertising is more
I
important
think
than the film itself?
that's a hard question, because
It
you can't have
is
one without the other.
because yeah, like you say, it's one of those things. Yeah, like there's no point having amazing advertising if the film is shoddy at best. But then yeah, it's like if you don't promote your film, no one's going to see
Yeah.
it, regardless of how
Well,
good it is. So that's why social media is one of those things where it can be a pain in the arse at
yeah.
times, but it's definitely good when you're trying to advertise things because we could post a link to
Mm.
this, like this podcast, post it on Reddit. 9,000 people might see it, and if only like 100 people click on the link, like what, maybe 10 of them turn around and go, "Oh, it's actually not that bad." So it's like you've got such a wide spread reach for nothing. It costs you nothing to post on Reddit, to post on Instagram, anything like that. But then arguably it's things like the big posters in like Times Square or something are where you're going to get most people going,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay."
Well, It's interesting, really, because I can't recall where I actually read this, but it's like word of mouth is still the most um, efficient way of advertising when it comes to people hearing about something and people going to see it or people buying it. Like, 10,000
Yeah.
people could see a poster in Times Square in you know, like a day. But then like a small percentage of those people will then proceed to go and watch the film because of that poster. Whereas if like 10,000 people recommend a film or a product to one friend each, like the percentage of people out of that 10,000 that will then go on to engage with whatever it is that they were told about is like much higher. It's like 80 or 90%. So I think advertising is obviously important, but not as much as you'd like to think, because if you've made a really good film, even if less people see it, those people are more likely to recommend it to their friends and their family, or talk about it on Facebook, or if they're active in like film groups and stuff, whatever. They're more likely to recommend it to people, and that is a much more efficient way of converting you know uh, converting potential into return than just spamming like Facebook adverts out there everywhere. So
Yeah.
like my answer is like it's not advertising isn't more important. It is important, but if you make a good film or TV show or whatever it is, if the product is good, in this case it's film, if the product is good, then it will eventually sort of advertise itself through the people that have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to if a product is garbage and then you managed and you just go all in on the advertising campaign, and you get a big spike, but then it doesn't grow. It's like an epidemic. If you got a highly transmissible product, it's going to bounce from people to people. And if one friend tells two friends, and one of them goes to see it, and then that one friend tells three friends, and then two of those friends go to see it, like it just grows. Whereas if you have like a trash film that you've just put all your effort into advertising, people are going to go see it, and they're going to be like, oh, and people will talk about it. They'll be like, oh, did you go and see that film the other week? And they'll be like, yeah, it was trash. Don't bother. Whereas like on the flip side, it could be like there's not much on at the cinema, and there's this film that they haven't really heard much about, and they go and watch it, and their friends are like, oh, how was that film? You're like, oh, actually, it's really good. Yeah, like I recommend it. It's kind of like a good example of this from my experience is Fury, the World War II film with Brad Pitt, Shia LaBeouf, and that guy from Punisher.
I remember it.
Because that film wasn't like, I think it's 2014 that film came out. I don't even recall seeing that advertised anywhere. But me and my friend, we wanted to go to the cinema, and not many people wanted to go to the cinema, so it was just like, oh, let's just go, just two of us, mandate. And we just looked at what was on, and we saw this Fury film, and we were like, I don't really heard much about it, but it's got Brad Pitt. It looks alright. Trailer's decent. Went to go and see it, and we were like, whoa, that's a great film. And then we went and told everyone about it, and now there's like at least like 18 people that have seen that film just from me telling them to go see it. So to answer the question, it's not more important. It is important to an extent to get those first few people through the door, but having it's more important to have a great film or a great product, because that will perpetuate its own success if it's good.
Okay. Going off that then, do you think that with things like social media and word of mouth, so I don't know, depending on who it is, because obviously, like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, if you're going to have to pay him a lot of money for him to put anything of yours on his social media, because that's his platform. So, say for a not Marvel film, like a horror film, or sort of independent horror film coming out, where they would normally rely on just sort of word of mouth and social media, do you reckon they would be more successful than something like a new Saw film where they've got the budget to put out posters everywhere? Just based off the fact they are relying solely on social media and word of mouth, where they can spend
So
little to
what's
nothing
the metric we're
on
using
advertising.
for success here? Is it like sales or is it
So sort
respect
of like they
or both?
people walking through the door, like ticket
Well,
sales.
that's the thing. That like with a pre-established franchise like Saw, like there's always going to be a certain number of people who are going to go and see the film just because it's Saw. And again, I think if you make a really good Saw film, I'm not personally a fan of Saw films, but if you make a really good Saw film, then those few people who go in because it's Saw and they're fans of the Saw franchise, they'll go in and watch it just based on the name alone. If you make a really good Saw film,
Yeah.
then they'll be like, God, that was ace, and they'll then talk about it a lot. Whereas if you don't do as good of a job, you're still going to get those pre-established fans in to watch it because it is Saw. But if you don't do that as good of a job making the actual film and you sort of advertise it to make it look better than it actually is, then again it's the same thing as like the pre-established fans who go in to watch it. They're going to be just double disappointed because they're going to have the hype of the trailer and also the hype of the franchise itself. So not only are they going to not enjoy it and not recommend it, they're going to be actively sort of slandering the film because it's not lived up to what it was advertised to be. So
Mm.
again, it's tricky. And on the flip side, if you do an indie horror film, like I don't, to me, when I see a horror film with a really good advertising campaign, it's a red flag to me. If I yeah, because if I see a
Oh,
horror film
really?
that's got a really good advertising campaign and there's got lots of trailers, I just straight away in my brain because of past experience, I just think that film is not as good as it looks, and that's why the trailers are so good. It's because they're trying really
Yeah.
hard to get you in the door. Now, obviously, that's not always the case. Some films have good trailers, and they're also good films. There's also a long list of films that have really good trailers, but you can tell they've made the trailer so good because they've taken all the best bits and they've sort of
Yeah.
given you all the film has to offer in that like 2 minute trailer because the film itself can't really stand on its
Have
own.
we discussed like Batman vs Superman, like
We
trailers and stuff like
have,
that?
yeah, quite a
Because
while
in
ago.
that they literally, yeah, how they reveal the sort of big twists of the film literally
Yeah,
in
I
the
hate that.
trailers, and that always bugged me. 'Cause I'm like, right, I was going to go and watch the film regardless because I like the
Mm,
superheroes, like I like the characters. You don't then need to show me who the big twist villain is at the end. Like leave that to a big surprise. I
yeah,
don't need to know who it is going in because now I know it's like I know Doomsday's in the trailer, so I know he's going to be the big bad. I don't care about the fact that Lex Luthor's doing something off to the side. Right? It's yeah,
like it is tricky because,
I don't know. I
but again, if you feel like you need to reveal those big plot twists in the trailer, what does that say about your confidence for the rest of the film? You know, like it's one of those
yeah.
things. This is like something that it's bugged me for a long time. Obviously, use the horror example. The horror genre is a hard place to be successful because so much of it has been done before, and it's very hard to do like new things in the horror genre because like everything's sort of been done before and everything's a bit of a cliche. It's like, do you remember like in between like 2008 and then 2018 there were just like every horror film was like jump scare, jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. It's like, oh great, like there's so.
Yeah.
And then like the Haunting of Hill House series came out where it had jump scares in there, but it was such a long drawn out experience to watch those episodes and watch that uh, whole series. That was a really really well
Mm.
done horror series, and it's the first time I've watched horror for a long time and been like, scared, but also enjoyed what it is because they found a way
Oh
to
yeah.
with that story and what they had to work with, they found a way to sort of string out that horror. Whereas a lot of films were sort of relying on the jump scare aspect of things way too much.
Well, Haunting of Hill House, I absolutely loved that. Like, I remember watching that. I was
Oh,
like, "This is
yeah,
amazing."
I've
Haunting
not
of
watched
Bly
that yet.
Manor came out, and it's
This is
okay. I won't.
not
I
to
won't
interrupt.
say
This is
anything,
a
but
good example of the advertising thing you was talking about before, because I watched the advertising for Bly Manor, and I was sort of, I was going to go and I wanted to go to watch it because I liked Haunted of Hill House, but
yeah.
spoken to you and certain other people who said it wasn't very good, despite the fact I loved Haunting of Hill House. It's one of my favorite modern series like ever. Like it's the first, especially horror
Mm.
as well. It's the first horror series or film that I've genuinely like loved. But I haven't watched Bly Manor yet. I do intend to watch it because a lot of my friends, word of
Yeah.
mouth, said it wasn't very good and said it didn't live up to the hype. So
I definitely
yeah,
recommend watching it because it is good, but don't go
yeah,
in
that's what I've
comparing it
heard.
to Hill House because it's a different story, a different
Yeah,
approach. Because I went in just expecting it to use all the same tropes, so it's like the way they do things. But no, it's they've taken a whole different approach to it. So going back to rewatch it, I'm sure I'd enjoy it more. But it was, yeah, it's one of those things where I went into it
hmm.
expecting it to be like its
which is a
predecessor when it's
reasonable
not. It's
thing
its
when
own thing.
it's it shares most of the words from the original title.
Well, it
Yeah,
shares a
so
lot of the cast as well. It's just it's like American Horror
yeah,
Story. They're anthology series. So yeah. Anyway, right. Should we start wrapping up and get on to
go on
our
then.
stories?
Who wants to go first?
Uh, I'll go first then because yours will be most memorable after that. So the genre is mystery. The title is Woman of Man's Legacy. Tagline: After a famous inventor dies in an accident, his wife discovers that some of his creations are not as friendly as she
Oh,
thought.
okay.
Mysterious. Adrian is a world-renowned inventor, having become very rich due to his creations. His wife, Eloise, has lived a life of luxury. Adrian is killed in a car crash, leaving Eloise to sort out his belongings. While clearing out his workshops, he stumbles across a secret passage, in which she finds the real source of Adrian's wealth. Firearms and weapons more powerful and more advanced than anything she has ever seen. Eloise soon discovers that Adrian was not killed in an accident and was in fact murdered after someone breaks into her house and tries to kill her. As Eloise starts to piece together the timeline of events and begins to figure things out, she discovers that those she believed to be her closest allies are in fact the ones
Oh,
who want to see her dead.
that's good.
Oh,
I like that.
thank you.
I do like that.
Yeah. So I had this whole storyline in my head as we were talking. I was like, yeah, go there, there, there. Then as we were talking, the end of it just sort of fell off. So I can't
Yeah,
remember where I was going with this.
I like that. That's good.
But yeah,
I can, like, you
thank
can
you.
tell when it's a good idea when you can sort of see it in your head while someone's telling you it. Like as you was reading it out, like I was having like little like blips of like shots and things happening. So A+. So
But there we go. There you go.
mine, it might be a bit of a mess. I'm not sure because I was trying to do what I was typing, and I just sort of like getting halfway through a sentence and then being like, actually no, let's do this. Actually no, let's do that. Um, but I'll let you be the judge. Okay, so my title was Human of Time, same genre, mystery. Now last week I did a really long tagline, so this week I've gone in the opposite direction and I've gone a really short tagline. Um,
Okay.
So the tagline or logline, whatever you want to call it, is the right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world. And
Oh,
the plot synopsis, is that the right word? Synopsis? Okay. A man is caught
sure.
up in a government experiment when he stumbles. Oh, wait. No, never mind. A man is caught up in a government experiment when he stumbles upon government scientists near his home. Shortly after, disaster strikes and his family and friends are all killed. He is offered the chance to save them by being sent 45 years back in time to the day before he was born, to alter a series of events that lead to this disaster being prevented. The only catch is he can never return to the present and must spend a lifetime on the outside of his loved ones' lives as they live a life in which he never existed.
Oh.
So it's like he gets sent back in time to save them, but in doing so, he effectively erases himself from.
So he creates a paradox.
The idea was like he'd be sent back in time with like a list of events that he has to be at the right time in the right place, or the wrong place sometimes, to alter something, which then alters another thing, which alters another thing, which eventually leads to that. And he's got a big list of these that he has to work through, and they all take place sort of in and around the area that he lived. So he's working on these. Yeah. He has to get all these right over a 45-year period. He has to hit all these places at the right place at the right time and make certain things happen. So he's working really hard and influencing all these events to go a certain way to save his family, but at the same time he has to live like on the same street as, you know, his then, or his past/future wife, who is now living in a world where he doesn't exist. So he's seeing her like marry another man, have children with another dude, and like he sees his parents, like, you know, he sees his parents grow old and eventually die, but like he can't go and be a part of it because that ruins the whole thing of saving them in the first place. So yeah, that was.
Damn. I like that. That's a good one, actually. I'm trying to figure out how could we.
I'm sure we probably could.
That? Oh, that's a pretty easy one to film, actually.
Quite tragic, really. You think about it.
Yeah, that is quite depressing, actually. Try not to think about it. Yeah, well done. I'll give you an A+ star. All right. So, loyal viewer, if you want to, in the comments, if you decide which one was your favourite, and then whoever it is gets to gloat about it.
Well, how about if we do a thing where, like, you know, the loyal viewer can cast their vote? Can we do polls on YouTube, or do you have to have like a certain amount of subscribers to do that? Is that like a locked thing? I know polls are a thing.
I don't. I think you can do it on your community page, but
well, if you can do a poll, there'll be a poll right here, right now. But if not, then comment down below which idea you like, and then maybe like the week after we can progress with like another part of it or something like that. I don't know. We'll see what we do.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like this where we just come up with very quick little ideas.
It's a nice,
but
like a little writing seminar.
Nice little writing. Little writing task. There you go. We get all our creative juices flowing.
You at home can get involved by writing your own film idea with one of our titles and post it in the comments below, and we'll showcase it next week.
You can get featured. Imagine it. Boom. There you go. Anyway, right.
Yes,
we need to start wrapping things up. So thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed it, then please consider subscribing, give it a thumbs up, comment down below what you enjoyed, what you'd like us to talk about. But yeah, I've been George. He's been Elliot. This has been the Mise-En-Sesh, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye, treasured viewer.
Goodbye.
We stayed on topic for a whole hour.